When Hideki Kamiya was working on Resident Evil 4, he wanted to move away from the slow, suspenseful survival horror that Ari was known for. His goal instead was to have a focus on fast-paced, stylish combat, but during development, the combat system strayed too far from the survival horror genre. So instead of just scrapping the project so far, Ari producer Shinji Mikami convinced Kamiya and the rest of the team to make the project into an entirely new game. This resulted in the creation of Devil May Cry, and birthed the best character ever to be created in fiction, Dante. So throughout the years, the Devil May Cry franchise has seen its fair share of ups and downs. I mean, shit, the sequel to the original Devil May Cry 2, is literally the worst game in the series. But of course, Devil May Cry 3 came out and it cleaned the slate. It was everything that DMC 2 wasn't and more. It regained DMC fans' favor and had them excited for what the series had to offer. And then DMC 4 came out. DMC 4 was a good game in my opinion, but it was a very flawed game and everyone noticed that. It really could have been great, but it ended up just being kind of good, I guess. Devil May Cry wouldn't release another mainline title for the next 11 years. And I say mainline because I just don't feel like mentioning the mistake that was DMC Devil May Cry. In this time, many DMC-inspired games would come and go. Some now a staple in the hack and slash genre, some absolutely fucking ass. But none of that would matter, because on the 8th of March 2019, 4 years worth of development would finally pay off. My name is Jugo Young, and this is Devil May Cry 5. Released in 2019 to critical acclaim, Devil May Cry 5 was a game that had something to prove, and holy hell, it definitely proved something. The amalgamation of every DMC game thus far, 5 takes the best parts of all the other games and just makes them better. It streamlined the series, it fucking improved the formula. It upped the standards so much that DMC 6 has to be developed by Jesus if it wants to top 5. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but this game is really good. The DMC5 development team stayed down and took their time with this game, and thank God they did, because they made a masterpiece in the process. Whether you are a long-time fan of the franchise or it was your first time playing a DMC game, Devil May Cry 5 was a spectacle to behold. And whether you've played it or not, you should stick around for this video because I got a lot of shit to say about this game. The director of this game, Hideaki Itsuno, intended for this game to be his best work. And yeah, I'd say he definitely achieved that. After the shit show and logistical nightmare that was DMC Devil May Cry, Capcom knew they had to take their time with the next DMC game. And they did. I mean, they took a lot of time to be honest, 11 years to be exact. Did they really need that much time? Regardless, it was a tough time to be a DMC fan. People didn't know what was next for the franchise. Was the next game going to be a continuation of the reboot? Were they going to go back to the original storyline? No one fucking knew, and it would be that way for the next 6-some years. That was until Devil May Cry 5 was revealed at E3 2018. Remember when people fucking cared about E3? And there was also a playable demo dropped in August of the same year. Many of the developers for the original Devil May Cry were involved with the creation of this game, and it was plain to see. You can tell when the people behind the game really care for it, and no offense to Ninja Theory, but that love just wasn't there for the DMC reboot. There was a lot of interesting things that went into the development of 5 that hadn't been done in the DMC franchise before. For example, because the game is meant to be as realistic as possible, each character is modeled after an actor, resulting in a much more realistic and down-to-earth look. During localization, Dante's voice actor thought that the dialogue was horrible and he went out of his way to help rewrite it. Stuff like this helped DMC5 become the masterpiece that it is. Having much better translation and English voice acting made the story much more enjoyable, unlike earlier games that just had corny, weird dialogue. Like, do you guys remember this shit?
I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light!
Yeah. Now in DMC5, the dialogue is much more natural and sounds like people actually talking to each other rather than like a fucking early 2000s anime dub. But yeah, in March of 2019, the full game finally released, and wow, words can't describe how much people love this game off the rip. I mean, it got a 9.5 on IGN. That's gotta mean something, right? This game has so many quality of life improvements that just make the game much more enjoyable and overall more accessible. And no, this isn't a bad thing. If you want the original Devil May Cry 5 experience, you can do that, and if you don't want to enjoy living, then you can play Hell in Hell mode. The controls are more responsive than they've ever been, meaning you have full control of your character, and in a game like DMC5, that makes a massive difference. The game has you playing as 3 characters, Dante, Nero, and V. There's also another character that you can play as later on in the game, but that's kind of complicated, so I'll talk about that later. There are 21 missions in this game, and these are more or less split evenly between your 3 main characters. Now before I get into their gameplay, let me just say everyone has their own opinions, but V is like objectively the worst character in the game. Anyway, let's get started. So starting off with Dante, all I can say is that Dante is at his best in this game. After 18 years of tweaking his combat and improving his abilities, all of that is shown in DMC 5. This is the best Dante we have played as so far. Dante as a character has grown and developed so much, and you can really see that in his moveset. Like in the other games, Dante still has his 4 changeable styles, those being Trickster, Swordmaster, Gunslinger, and Royal Guard. Alright, so these are kind of pivotal to Dante's gameplay, so I'll just go through each of them and just break them down. This is a fucking tongue twister. Trickster focuses on maneuverability. It makes getting to and away from enemies easy, and it's overall just great for getting around the battlefield. And then you got Swordmaster, and I don't really know what to say, gang. It just makes your swords a whole lot better. It gives you an extra ability for all of your melee weapons, and it increases your combo potential and melee capabilities. Gunslinger does a lot of things to make your ranged weapons a lot more viable and useful, adding powered up shots, wide area shots, new mid-air attacks. It just makes your guns more versatile than they've ever been. And last but not least is Royal Guard, which is kind of simple in concept but a lot more harder to pull off in practice. It focuses on minimizing damage with its blocks and countering, which is just... I mean, that's all there is to it, but if you play the game, you know it's not that simple. Now, like DMC4, you're able to switch these styles on the fly, giving so much more potential for combos and versatility, but unlike DMC4, it was done well in this game. These 4 styles come together flawlessly. Playing 4 and 5 back to back is an interesting experience because you get to see how much Dante was improved and how they pinpointed all of his problems and put extra care into correcting them. Dante's weapons in this game are the most vast and unique that they've ever been. You better get used to me saying something is unique or vast or just the most whatever than it's ever been, because DMC5 just improved a lot of shit, bro. Get used to it. Obviously, you got your mainstay returns like Ebony and Ivory, Rebellion, and the Kalina Ann, but you also got some new stuff. Like, for example, one of my favorite weapons in the game, this fucking motorbike. Once you get past the insanity of Dante swinging your bike around, you realize that it's actually a really good weapon. The slow heavy damage that is accentuated by its unique ability of getting stuck to the enemy's body is just really useful and fun to play around with. The whole getting stuck to the enemy's body thing works kinda like a chainsaw where one attack has multiple hits in it. And on the range side, you got shit like Dr. Faust, one of the most interesting weapons in DMC history. So lore-wise, it's the weaponized form of the enemy Faust, but gameplay-wise, it's a weapon that uses your red orbs as ammo. And it also turns you into Michael Jackson. It's an interesting mechanic where you can get the orbs back from these enemies, and using more orbs increases the damage, but it's also very risky. These weapons specifically and all the other additions and updates to old weapons make its combat extremely fun. Fucking superbly fun, terribly fun. This shit is really fucking fun, bro. Like, genuinely, playing as Dante is so delightful here. And delightful is not a word I use often. And as fun and well thought out Dante's gameplay design is, it's hard for me to say it's better than Nero. Regardless, whether you're a newcomer or a seasoned veteran, you'd be hard pressed to find someone who doesn't think that this is the definitive Dante experience. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Dante's Devil Trigger is back, and it's fucking awesome. So you got your normal Devil Trigger, yeah, it's cool. Increased damage, health regeneration, cool effects and shit. You know, it's pretty cool. But Sin Devil Trigger is really fucking cool. You turn into this big ass demon and you just start fucking shit up. Throughout the entirety of my time playing as Dante, I don't think I used the actual Devil Trigger once. It takes 12 bars of the normal Devil Trigger gauge to use the Sin Devil Trigger, and that's essentially just a full Devil Trigger gauge, but it's a good exchange. Most times I'll be keeping my DT gauge for Sin Devil Trigger, but if I'm about to die or I'm just in a bad spot, I'll use my normal Devil Trigger because that health regen and increased damage is really useful in a lot of situations. The reintroduction of Sin Devil Trigger makes it so that you have Sin for the nuclear option. It destroys everything and is great for clearing rooms and damaging bosses with a low risk and high reward. But at the same time, you still have your original Devil Trigger that you can use more often and is easier to get DT gauge for. All in all, this is a massive improvement and re-implementation or just redesign of DMC2's Devil Trigger. It's just another layer of depth to Dante's already well thought out and designed combat. I don't exactly have a long speech about how much Nero has improved and how this is the best version of him like how I did Dante. I mean, if I'm being honest, Nero's first appearance in DMC4 was pretty fucking good. His first appearance in the series gameplay-wise, it was not bad at all. It was a well-needed change of pace for the DMC franchise, and it provided a brand new way to play DMC games. One that focuses less on switching and swapping weapons and styles, and more on just using one weapon and its abundance of different moves. At first, it might not sound like a massive difference, but it's a lot more intricate and different to Dante's combat than I'm making it sound. But of course, this change isn't enough to make a whole new character interesting, and where 4 had the Devil Bringer, 5 has its multiple Devil Breakers. I mean, technically speaking, the Devil Bringer is in the game, like not only as one of the Devil Breakers, but it's also a reward for finishing the game. But you know, who cares about that? That doesn't matter. Okay, so unlike Dante's Styles, I'm not gonna go over all these Devil Breakers, cause like, that's just not gonna happen, bro. There's a very good variety in the Devil Breakers, and I can full-heartedly say that all of them are unique. They all have their individual quirks and abilities that give them different purposes and reasons to be used. Overall, they're just a neat addition to the game. You're still able to pull enemies in and pull yourself towards larger enemies, and thank God they kept that in. It makes closing gaps a joy and makes going from enemy to enemy that much faster and easier. Apart from the removal of the Devil Bringer and addition of Devil Breakers, Nero as a character has overall just gotten a level up. Nero's weapon, the dual-barreled revolver Blue Rose, and his absolute fucking beauty of a sword, the Red Queen, are back and better than ever. The Blue Rose feels so damn good in this game, bro. The way it hits enemies and stops a lot of them in their tracks allows you to feel the weight behind the gun, especially with certain enemies where the gun can be used to break their shell or to stun them. Like Dante, you're able to charge up your shots, but this is much more enjoyable and like fleshed out with Nero. His fully charged up shots do a lot more damage and add some interesting effects to your bullets. The Red Queen is back, and it absolutely perfected the Exceed mechanic in DMC5. Alright, so if you don't know what this is, Nero's sword, the Red Queen, has like a fucking car engine or an entire fucking motorbike in it or some shit. This means that by pressing a certain button, you can rev the engine. This stacks up 3 times, and at the 3rd level, your attacks will do an extremely high amount of damage and have this like flame effect to them. There's an upgrade you can get later on in the game that allows you to max Exceed by timing your presses after attacks, and it's really fucking fun. It's almost mandatory, like a necessity in the harder modes, and it's one of the many examples of how this game rewards you for actually being good at it. The Red Queen just has so many useful moves. The amount of different combos, the amount of different fucking aerial moves, downward moves, spinning tornado moves, it's fucking beautiful. Apart from the Red Queen, Nero's fucking behemoth of a gun, the aforementioned Blue Rose, is also back, and it's magnificent. This is a 2-barreled revolver, so the gun shoots 2 bullets at a time, and in gameplay that translates to somewhat slow firing bullets that completely stop enemies in their tracks. Like, have you ever played Destiny 2? Okay, this is gonna be a quick tangent here, but just hear me out. Alright, so the Destiny games have these glorified revolvers called hand cannons, and they hit enemies like fucking trucks. Like, on God, bro, they hit like a fucking horse kick to the chest. The way weaker enemies react to them is very reminiscent of how DMC5 enemies react to Blue Rose bullets. I really like Destiny. A cool thing about the Blue Rose is that it almost has an Exceed effect on its bullets that you can get from the color up upgrades. I can't remember exactly what the upgrade gives you, but it adds shit like vastly increased damage and shit like fiery and explosive buffs to your bullets. I mentioned before that some of Dante's ranged weapons have effects like this where you hold them up and just do more damage or do whatever, but Nero's shit is completely different. It's like that times a million. Those 2 weapons and your entourage of Devil Breakers are the only weapons Nero has at his disposal. His arsenal might seem very underutilized compared to Dante's abundance of unique and eccentric weapons, but it isn't. Believe me when I say this, his 2 weapons are used to their fullest potential. When you look at the diversity of his moveset and how creative the developers got with some of his attacks and abilities, it's clear to see how much effort was put into making Nero a well-rounded character. Everything that isn't provided in Nero's sword and gun are attainable from his Devil Breakers. Just stop and think about it. He has so many Devil Breakers, each with noticeably different abilities. Stopping time, shooting lasers, turning into a skateboard, the fucking Mega Man. When you really take into account the multiple different uses for each Devil Trigger and how... Did I say Devil? Fuck. Each Devil Breaker and how, I can't stress this enough, how vastly different they are, Nero's lack of weapons ceases to even be considered a problem. You know, if I'm being honest, there's only really one thing I don't like about Nero in Devil May Cry 5. In DMC5, he has this sort of delinquent thug look going on, if you know what I'm saying. I don't really know how to explain it, but the short hair mixed with the really strong jawline and more realistic graphics is a drastic change from DMC4 Nero. Overall, I would say it wasn't that positive to change Nero's look. He looks a lot less like an anime protagonist and more like a demon hunter in his early 20s, but still, he's just not cute anymore, bro. DMC4 Nero was cute, man, and I like that. Okay, so that section about Nero not being cute was longer than it had any right to be, but you get the point. Nero is my favorite character to play as in base Devil May Cry. His drastically improved moveset and the introduction of Devil Breakers made his segment super enjoyable to me. Lore-wise and gameplay-wise, Nero is one of my favorite DMC characters of all time, second to only one character that I'll talk about later in the video. But apart from that, I fucking love Nero, man. Okay, so out of these three characters, V is the worst, but he's by no means bad. I made a whole video talking about V's combat and pinpointing all the problems with it, so watch that if you're interested. But yeah, this section of the video isn't going to be as critical or as in-depth of V's combat. So just go watch the video once you're done with this one. Or go watch it now, then come right back to this video. V is a decent, maybe even a good character, but his gameplay just isn't anywhere as good as Nero's or Dante's. But anyway, all this is to say that V is still an enjoyable character. His combat is very different to Dante and Nero, being that he doesn't actually fight. So V has these three familiars that fight for him, but they can't actually kill enemies. They just damage them enough for V to pull up and fuck him with a cane. Oh my days, that sounds weird. For all intensive purposes, these familiars are stands. Nah, yeah, V is cool. I mean, he's like a puppeteer character, he controls them. He's alright, I guess. I know it seems like I don't care about V, and that's because I don't. V is a very flawed character and in my opinion the worst part of Devil May Cry 5, but I didn't really hate playing as him. He has the least missions of all the three characters, and running around attacking people with a bird and lion thing is kinda fun. Like, teleporting to enemies and finishing them off with the cane is very satisfying, but a lot of the times his combat just feels very repetitive. This isn't a problem with Dante or Nero, but it's a very noticeable problem with V. Like, I really don't have much to say about V, just go watch that video after you've watched this one. Okay, so earlier on in the video I said that there's only one character I like more than Nero. For the past however many minutes you've probably been dying of curiosity, like who the fuck could Jugo Young like more than Nero? Well, if you've been able to put two and two together, you would have realized that the character I'm talking about is Virgil. Dante is half human, half demon twin brother, and the best thing to come out of this franchise. So Virgil wasn't originally a part of the base game, he was just added in later as DLC. Whether this was because of fan backlash or maybe just corporate greed, I don't really care, because regardless it means the best DMC character ever to exist was added to the best DMC game. Okay, so it's a little bit hard to explain Virgil's combat without sounding like a nigga from an IGN video, so instead I'm going to try compare it to Dante's. Dante is a very wild fighter. He uses weird weapons, is a wisecracking joker, and he moves around attacking and maneuvering in a very eccentric way. Virgil is the complete opposite of that. Virgil's combat is sleek, smooth, and very calculated, but is still extremely stylish, just in a different way. And his main weapon, the Yamato, embodies this concept perfectly. The sister sword to Dante's Rebellion, Yamato is a katana capable of slicing dimensions in half, or maybe just opening them, I'm not really sure. His combat with the Yamato is very fast-paced, even more so than Dante and Nero. Like, it's basically just anime shit, bro. I'm not even sure how else to describe it. Super fast slices and slashes, rapid fire attacks, and what might as well be considered teleportation with how fast he moves. Along with the Yamato, you also have the Mirage Edge, a redesign of Virgil's Force Edge from DMC4. Okay, so you dual wield the Mirage Edge with the Yamato, and it's a very different type of sword gameplay. So the Mirage Edge borrows some moves from Dante, but it's still a unique weapon. It's kind of like using twin baseball bats. The impact and attacks of these weapons aren't as sharp or smooth as Yamato, and it feels almost as if you're using a blunt weapon. But his gameplay takes that and translates that into very hard-hitting and fast yet impactful sword combos. Honestly, I love using the Yamato, all that swish, swash, that fucking pulling it from the sheath shit and slicing niggas in half. It's fun as hell. But using the fucking Mirage Edge, it just hits different, bro. Like, it's like just beating the fuck out of demons with it. You're not slashing them, you're just beating them with it, bro. It's so fun. Last but not least is the Beowulf. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. A weapon from DMC 3 and 4, the Beowulf is a pair of gauntlets and greaves that are Virgil's answer to extremely close-range combat. Like, I know I was just talking about how the Mirage Edge hits different, but the Beowulf is on a different level, bro. Like, hitting enemies with the Beowulf feels like shooting niggas with the blue rose. Like, those are essentially the same sense of fucking enjoyment. That's how they feel. You may be thinking, oh wait, where the fuck are the guns? Well, no, dummy. Virgil doesn't use fucking dirty, puny human guns. This nigga uses swords. Yeah, like, he just throws magic swords. His summon swords, lore-wise, are swords made of magic that he basically just shoots with his mind, but this means you can shoot them while melee attacking. Having access to ranged attacks while attacking with your Yamato or Beowulf is very cool and helps show how different Virgil is. It shows how he drifts more towards his demonic side, whereas Dante, with his assortments of guns and man-made weapons, is more human. And you know what? Since I've already started getting into the lore shit, might as well just dive straight into the plot of DMC5. Alright, so I don't play games for their story. I've never started playing a game because the plot looked cool or because it had some well-written characters, but at the same time, my favorite games of all time are games I originally started playing because of the gameplay and ended up falling in love with their story. Whether it was the fantastical world of Ocarina of Time or the moral dilemmas and interesting views of Nier Automata, all these games have something in common: great gameplay and a great story to match it. Devil May Cry 5 is one of these games. It's a perfect sequel to the somewhat lukewarm story of DMC4. It ups the stakes, it gives the characters new motivations, and it sheds light on a lot of their relationships. Since the incidents of the last game where Fortuna just got all types of fucked up, Nero started his own branch of Devil May Cry. He's been doing this with the help of a girl named Nico, who's essentially just his mechanic, fixing and upgrading his weapons and making devil breakers for him. Nico's van is essentially going to be your shop, popping up at random times around the game. This is going to be your source of upgrades, new abilities, and items. Also, fun fact, turns out Nico is the daughter of that guy Agnes from DMC4. You remember that dude? And it's like, it's kind of cool how that works together, since they're both like, I don't know, mechanic-y, science-y creation people. I didn't know that before making this video, so that's cool. Yeah, the more you know. Don't say you don't learn at Jugo Young. Don't say that Jugo Young doesn't teach you shit, bro. The Jugo Young channel is an informative place. Since I've already mentioned Devil Breakers, you're probably wondering what happened to Nero's arm and why half of it is just missing. Alright, so in a cutscene it's shown that some hooded man kind of just appeared and finessed his arm, just leaving him to bleed out. This guy also had the Yamato, which is kind of weird. I wonder who this could be. Anyway, in the beginning of the game you can see some old faces fighting this big ass demon. Of course you got Dante, Nero, Trish, and you also got my wife, Lady, looking fucking magnificent, that 2019 4K resolution. Yeah, anyway, you also got this weird emo looking dude covered in tattoos. This guy is called V, and it turns out that he was the person who hired Dante and the rest of them to defeat this demon. Full name, Urizen the Demon King. And yeah, I don't know if you can tell, but they were not successful. Lady and Trish are kidnapped and Dante is knocked the fuck out, leaving it all up to Nero to help V. In my opinion, this opening segment of the game is fucking perfect. It's a great tutorial showing off some of Nero's improvements and new abilities, and it also sets up the rest of the story very well. After this encounter, Nero and V go their separate ways, making their way through the city and into this tree that's grown into the heart of it. This tree is called a Quillfoth. What is up with the names of these devil things, bro? You know what's even funnier is that that's not even the name of it. It's called the Cliffoth. Yeah. Let's just continue, bro. So they each do their own separate thing, fighting their way through the city. Then they meet up, make it into the tree, and they split up once again. Nero finding and rescuing Lady, and V looking for her and finding a hibernating Dante and the Devil Sword Sparta. After waking up, Dante frees Trish and also starts making his way up the demon tree, fighting his way towards the Demon King Urizen. Trish learns from V that Urizen is the demon side of Dante's brother Virgil, who used the Yamato to split his demon and human sides apart. Dante saw how powerful the Yamato was and kinda just thought like, hey, I wonder if my sword can do shit like that, since they're both sister weapons from their father. And yeah, it turns out it can. After stabbing himself, Dante unlocks his full demonic power and a new weapon, the Devil Sword Dante. Nero finds Urizen and tries to put the beats on him, but he's let's just say he doesn't have enough XP for that, so Dante has to save him using his newfound powers. While Dante is fighting Urizen, Nero goes off and rescues V from the demon Malphas. There's a whole lot of rescuing and saving going on, bro. During this moment, V tells Nero about Dante and Virgil's relationship. Nero and V reach Dante just as he defeats Urizen, but a dying V intervenes and merges with Urizen before Dante can finish him, reviving Virgil. Holy shit. When this happened, bro, I was so damn excited. It was like a weird mixture of happiness and confusion. Throughout the game, it's just been dropping hints that V was the human side of Virgil, and I'd sort of pieced it together by then, but regardless, this was a really cool moment. Like, I deadass paused the game and I was like, fuck, thank God Virgil is back. The GOAT, Daddy Virgil is back. Praise the Lord. I am a Virgil dick rider to the end of the earth, bro. I will ride that man's dick into eternity. So Virgil leaves, essentially telling Dante to get good before fighting him again, and Nero tries to go after him, but Dante drops a fucking truth bomb on his head. Virgil is his father. Oh my fucking days, bro. Having these two massive revelations back to back had me feeling weird, bro. It was so cool. Like, it's kind of just been assumed that Virgil was Nero's father, but it was never actually confirmed. So for the past 10 years, people didn't really know if Virgil was his dad or not. But now they do. That shit was crazy. I feel like for all longtime fans of Devil May Cry, these two revelations just kind of hit different, if you know what I'm saying. Like, I don't really know how to put it into words, but if you're a fan of Devil May Cry and saw this without being spoiled for you, then you know what I mean. Dante and Virgil fight again, and Dante tells Virgil that Nero is his unintended son. Nero gets control of his emotions after a call with Kyrie and resolves to not let his father and uncle kill each other, awakening his demon powers and regrowing his arm. So Nero kinda just pulls up and beats Virgil with his brand new demon powers. Bro, this moment is really cool. It's like 10 years of tension has been released as we finally see Virgil acknowledge the existence of his son. After Nero pulls up and all three of them just kind of have this family reunion, Dante and Virgil kind of make up. They go to the underworld together to cut down the tree and seal the portal before it rips the city apart and merges the human and demon worlds together. Nero just getting out of there as fast as he can as the tree falls. Weeks later, Trish and Lady are hired for a new job by Dante's agent, Morrison, who Dante left in charge of his office. In the underworld, Dante and Virgil continue sparring while demons attack them, now friendly rivals instead of enemies. Oh my fucking god, bro, this was a roller coaster of emotions. Devil May Cry 5's story is so beautiful. This was a perfect continuation of Devil May Cry's story. It fleshed out a lot of concept and answered a lot of questions while at the same time making more questions. And it's not in a, whoa, that doesn't make sense at all, but more in a, whoa, I need Devil May Cry 6 now. The relationship between Dante, Nero, and Virgil is so interesting in this game, and at times it feels like a fucking episode of Dr. Phil with all the family drama going on. All the characters were very well written. Emphasis on characters like V who were new to the series but didn't seem out of place in this universe, and in hindsight was just Virgil hiding in plain sight. Like a wolf in sheep's clothing, you dirty dog, Virgil. Like a half demon, half human in weak, weird human's clothing. You're the GOAT, Virgil. All the characters' motives are explained, all their feelings and emotions shown, and that goes especially for Nero, who I felt grew a lot throughout the runtime of DMC5. Like I said before, I don't start playing games for their story, but when a game has a story as well thought out and enjoyable as DMC5's, it's near impossible for me not to enjoy it. Plot-wise, this is the best DMC game by far. Okay, so I've gone over each of the playable characters and I've also gone over the story. What do you get when you mix the characters with the story? Gameplay mechanics and enemy design. Okay, so I don't really have a good segue into this part, but give me a break, man. This video, making it, has definitely taken a couple years off of my lifespan. The level design in DMC5 is the perfect amount of some linear segments while mainly having open areas for you to explore. And listen to what I said, I didn't say open world. This is not an open world game. It has multiple levels, some leading into each other, some in the same area, and those have open areas with branching paths and shit. This wouldn't be a DMC game if there wasn't a fuckload of items and consumables for you to find. Whether it's those red orb things that you punch, or it's one of the many other items that I can't remember the name of, DMC5 certainly encourages exploration. Going down the multiple branching paths during the second half of the game where you're mainly in the tree is fun as hell. There are just so many different choices to make, not just branching paths, fucking branching X and Y axes, or whatever you would call this. And you'd think that I'd just get lost, but surprisingly no. Okay, I'll admit I definitely did get lost during my playthrough, but it's really not that noticeable of a problem. The game definitely does encourage backtracking, and you should be trying to remember what paths you take, cause if not, you'll be in for a pretty annoying time. Enemy placement in this game is top tier. Not including bosses, there's a total of 19 different enemy types in Devil May Cry 5. Each enemy has its own moveset, strengths, and weaknesses. Some enemies can block and deflect attacks, some enemies have special rage modes, and others can choose to attack with melee or ranged weapons. It feels like the developers made certain enemies just for specific situations, but when you are in those situations, they play out very well. It doesn't feel like they just plopped some enemies in random areas. They took into account how the player would react and what weapons and abilities they would have at that point. I know it doesn't really sound that crazy, but a lot of games don't have enemy placement near as good as DMC5's. The different enemy types forces you to stay on your feet and stops you from attacking mindlessly or just button mashing. It forces you to think about what you're doing and what attacks and moves you want to pull off. And with how much smoother and comfortable the controls are, this is easier than it's ever been. And that's not to say that the game is easy, it just means that at least in this game the controller isn't actively working against you. Of course, unless you're playing as V. Not including bosses, there's 19 different enemy types in this game, but if you do include bosses, I don't know exactly how much there are, but there's a lot more enemies. The boss fights in this game go stupendously hard. In my opinion, there are no bad bosses in this game. Some are good and some are fucking fantastic. Some of my standouts would be Goliath, Virgil, Artemis, or your multiple fights with Urizen. I don't know how to explain it, they're just so well designed and choreographed, it's just so fun to play against them. It's like each boss fight is a massive set piece, like Goliath for example. Running around him as Nero and looking for opportunities to attack him was so awesome, bro. Evading his slow but increasingly deadly attacks while getting moved from area to area because Goliath is literally destroying the building you're on. It's cool, bro. I feel like I don't even need to talk about Virgil, but I'll just leave it at this. This is the best Virgil versus Dante fight in the series, and it's by a long shot. Other bosses like Artemis just had really cool mechanics that force you to play a certain way and use different weapons. Overall, just the bosses in this game, chef's kiss, beautiful shit, bro. Shout out to the developers at Capcom or whatever the hell, they did a fantastic job. This game was created with so much love and passion put into it, and it's clear to see the combat, the story, the music. God, I haven't even mentioned the music. The music is really fucking good. Usually I put a podcast on in the background while playing video games just because I get bored a lot, but I didn't do that for Devil May Cry 5. The music was too great for me not to listen to it. So much thought went into every decision behind the game. Devil May Cry 5 is the perfect Devil May Cry. On Christmas Day last year, I posted my first ever video to this channel, and it was about DMC Devil May Cry. It was a review of a game I kinda liked but wasn't that passionate about. The only reason I made the video about the game was because I wanted my first video to be a DMC video. And that's because Devil May Cry is cool, bro. My whole life I've thought it was cool. Whether it was as a kid playing the DMC 4 demo on my Xbox 360 or playing DMC Devil May Cry Definitive Edition as soon as I got my Xbox One, I've always had love for the game franchise. And DMC 5 encapsulates and perfects everything I love about the series. I don't know when DMC 6 is going to come out. You know what, I don't even know if it will ever come out. This might have been the last game. But after that masterpiece they gave us with Devil May Cry 5, shit, they deserve a break. Man, fuck me, bro. Making this video was a long ride, bro. I started the idea and the script for this like a month or two ago. And I technically speaking, I've been working on it for about a month. But these last 2 weeks, I've really just been grinding down on it. I've had my exam, so that's why I didn't post an actual another video for the past 2 weeks. But today and yesterday I've wrote 10,000, now I'm bugging, 2,000-3,000 words and just finished half of the script. I think this video is going to be 35, maybe 40 minutes long. I don't really know. I'm kind of shivering because it's cold as fuck. I'm recording this in an undisclosed location. My hands are freezing. My legs hurt because for some reason I decided to stand up halfway through recording. And yeah, I'm hungry. So should I hit him with the usual one? Nah, let me think of a new one. Yo, it's your guy. Oh fuck, I hit my chest. It's your guy, the main man, the man with the plan, Jugo Young. I love Dante. I love Virgil. I love Nero. I might be gay. And I'll see you guys next time. Remember to like and subscribe, and peace.